There's plenty of blame to go around as the Bengals drop the season opener to the Steelers. I have plenty of thoughts on Zac Taylor, Joe Burrow, not playing the starters in the preseason, and more right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapien of allbengals.com, and naturally, it was not the start that most of you were hoping for on Sunday at Paycor Stadium as the Bengals dropped the season opener 23-20 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, it was ugly. It was wild. On Locked On Bengals, I described it as a roller coaster ride that essentially felt like Kings Island rebuilt the Son of Beast, and well, everybody's neck hurt afterwards because anybody that rode that old wooden roller coaster that really wasn't that old, well, they seemed to get injured. I remember 10-year-old me certainly did not like riding the Son of Beast. That being said, there's some good that came out of Sunday's game. I think there's some unfair criticism and some completely fair criticism. Let's start with Joe Burrow. Look, Joe Burrow's performance, particularly in the first half, but really throughout the game, outside of, I would say, the final 4 drives, he put it together. The last 2 drives of the fourth quarter, 2 drives in overtime. But ultimately, Joe Burrow wasn't good. And so I don't want to shy away from that. I'm still thinking about it, and Elise and I talked about this after the game. Burrow sitting at his locker, staring straight ahead. He did fist pump Tyler Boyd at one point when Boyd was walking out of the locker room, but he hadn't showered, he hadn't changed, nothing, and was just, to me, replaying everything that happened in that game. And there's a lot of bad. But they still had a chance to win. And that's the thing. It was the perfect storm of things that went wrong, from injuries to Clark Harris and T. Higgins, to just bad snaps, special teams miscues, Drew Sample missing the key block on Minkah Fitzpatrick on the extra point and going with the outside guy, not the inside guy, to Zac Taylor situational football, all of the turnovers, anything and everything in between that could have went wrong, and yet the Bengals were right there. And so what a lot of people are saying today is, man, Zac Taylor got it wrong in the preseason. Zac Taylor got it wrong, and he should have played his starters, and Burrow should have taken snaps. And let's first start with Joe Burrow. There's no way in hell Joe Burrow should have played in the preseason. He underwent an appendectomy on July 26th. 2.5 weeks later, he started throwing. 3 weeks after that surgery, he started playing and participating in team drills. And then he participated in those 2 joint practices with the Rams. His weight wasn't where it needed to be. He was still working his way back. And so to make up this idea, this narrative that, oh man, Joe Burrow, 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, he clearly didn't have the right timing, he was clearly off, he should have played in the preseason. Well, hell yeah, probably should have if he was healthy. He was still coming back from an appendectomy. And you know who would have been the first person to rip this coaching staff if they threw Joe Burrow out there in a meaningless Week 3 preseason game against Rams third stringers? Me. So I'm not going to have hindsight here. I'm not going to go back and say, oh man, all the starters should have played, because you know what? I didn't want them to play. Why would Jamar Chase play if Joe Burrow wasn't going to play? Why would most of the offensive line play? And by the way, Cordell Volson got a ton of snaps. Most of the starting offensive line play if La'el Collins wasn't ready. La'el Collins wasn't. He had 2 team practices where he was going in 11s against the Rams. He didn't participate in team drills outside of those practices throughout camp. So this idea that, oh, they should have played their guys. Well, Collins wouldn't have played. Jonah would have played, okay. Volson was still battling for the starting job. Karras in Kappa, of course, but Karras and Kappa were really good, I thought. I thought Jonah Williams looked bad, no doubt. And guess what? He was struggling with Trey Hendrickson in training camp. So does he have to get better? Absolutely. But this idea that, oh, Zac Taylor got it wrong. Did the Bengals defense look like they were rusty? Did it look like they needed time? Hindsight's 2020. I'm not going to rip Zac Taylor for not playing those guys in the preseason. In fact, I would have ripped him if one of those key starters would have gotten hurt in the preseason. Could you imagine if T. Higgins went down with a concussion or went down with some kind of other injury where he would miss the entirety of their Week 1 matchup against the Steelers? Well, that stuff happens. Injuries happen in football, and I understand why Zac Taylor didn't play key guys, especially because Burrow was never going to play anyway. I do have some beef, though, with Zac Taylor and what he did. And it's actually troubling and it's concerning. And so this is not, believe me, this is not the Zac Taylor defense hour. I just think the hindsight with the preseason stuff, let's use 2020 vision on this. All right, let's look at it clear. And to me, I thought they made the right call there, even if it meant some rust to start the 2022 campaign. That said, my big beef, my big gripe with Zac Taylor, it's a trend and it's a concern. And it's a concern because the Bengals, well, they're not just hoping to make the playoffs again. They're hoping to be one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best team in the NFL. And to do that, you need situational coaching. It matters. And I'm going to dive into that in just a second. But first, I have to tell you about MyBookie, because today's video brought to you by MyBookie, and while the Chargers and Chiefs prepare for Thursday night football, will Keenan Allen play? Will they not? Will he not? Will the Chiefs continue to put up huge numbers? Well, you can wager on that. You can wager on Bengals, Cowboys, which we will have plenty on right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk all week long. And right now, all you got to do is go to MyBookie, and you're going to get the most out of your money with a double deposit bonus. It's quick. It's easy. A $250 deposit puts $500 in your account instantly with promo code BengalsTalk. That's it. Go sign up and register today. Use promo code BengalsTalk, and it's going to give you more excitement every Sunday, every Thursday, every Monday. That's promo code BengalsTalk to double your money up to $1,000 with MyBookie. It's only week 2, which means there's still plenty of time to get in on the action. Go there now. MyBookie, promo code BengalsTalk. And look, ladies and gentlemen, Zac Taylor has built the right culture here in Cincinnati. I like the way he's, a players-friendly coach. And heck, I just defended him with the preseason stuff. But there's a troubling trend. And last year, they were in a lot of close games and had a talented team that was capable of winning them, really for the first time during his tenure. And so it was easy to see, Green Bay, he's learning from his mistakes. That Week 5 loss, weird, wacky loss. The loss to San Francisco where he takes the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. Another one, right? There was a trend last year. Super Bowl 56. Joe Mixon isn't on the field in the final drive. There's a trend of weird decisions, weird timing, little situational things that you're hoping he gets better at and improves on. And all offseason, when it came to Zac Taylor, I praised him, but I don't think I crowned him because of the situational stuff. And I said I wanted to see that. And while week 1, it didn't put those concerns to rest, and instead it brought them back to life even more. Because Zac Taylor really struggled down the stretch of this game. And there are 3 clear issues, 3 clear questionable decisions as the Bengals were marching downfield to try to win and steal victory from the jaws of defeat. And the first one was that Ja'Marr Chase touchdown. And it was a touchdown. Less than 3 minutes to go. Ja'Marr Chase catches the ball, was marked down at the 1, clearly a touchdown. Well, the Bengals run up to get a snap off, hand the ball off to Mixon, and Mixon doesn't get in and instead loses 3 yards. And then they take a timeout, and it's a ball out of bounds to Hayden Hurst. Then it's a ball out of bounds, I believe, to Ja'Marr Chase. I believe that was the next play. And then it's an incomplete to Ja'Marr Chase. Boom, turnover on downs. That would have made it 20-20. And all they had to do was slow it down, take a second, breathe, and check with the coaching staff and say, I think this might be worth challenging. They blew the timeout anyways. So that's one, and that's a bad one because the Bengals could have won this game in regulation with no special teams, anything. They get the stop, which they did anyways. And the Pittsburgh Steelers would have played it different, and who knows how it works. But there's a really good chance, given how the Bengals defense played, that they would have gotten the ball back. They did not. And when they did, they had to go score to tie the game versus take the lead and win the game. So that's the first one. The second one, and I don't blame them for this, but you kick the extra point after tying the game 20-20. Look, if you were worried about Mitch Wilcox snapping it, maybe you just go for 2 there and go for the win, and if not, you're going to overtime. Maybe you do. Your offense was rolling, back-to-back long drives. So that's the first one. The second one is the decision to kick a field goal, 29-yard field goal, which I get. Evan McPherson, he's money, he's automatic, understand it. but you just had a special teams gaffe. And so you decided to do it on third down, which I understand the logic. If it's a bad snap, Kevin Huber can spike it and you have another shot at the field goal attempt. I get the logic. The part that I don't understand is it was a bad snap. That snap was high. Kevin Huber's a good holder, so he was able to grab it and get it down. And I understand that if you don't take it there and you spike it, well, then you're down to one shot. And what if the snap's even worse? I get that. I do. But that was a bad snap. Did you see the kick? Evan McPherson has never kicked a ball like that, ever. And he took the blame afterwards. But it's situational stuff. Kevin Huber's a veteran. Say, man, if this is not a good snap, that's it. Clock it. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that wasn't the instruction. Feels like it should have been because that's the whole point of kicking on third down. Otherwise, I like Jamar Chase. I like Hayden Hurst. I like putting the ball in Joe Burrow's hands on 3rd and 8 and seeing if he can control their own destiny. Instead, you take it out of his hands to kick the field goal. Under normal circumstances, I understand it. But in those, if you're going to do that, if the snap isn't perfect, clock it. Let's try it one more time. And then on 4th down, do whatever you can, Kevin, to put the ball down, get it down, and go. And instead, they blew it there. And then the third one, and this was as I was writing my game tie story for allbengals.com. And I had 3 versions of the Steelers winning. I had 3 versions of the Bengals winning. I had a game tying story. I wrote about 17 different stories, which is just hilarious at this point because they all had the cutting room floor except the one. And the decision to punt the ball with 13 seconds, I've seen a lot of people say, well, why would you punt the ball with 13 seconds? And I understand it. I do. And Zac countered with, we were just more worried about the snap and getting the snap back, which they've had some long snapper issues, obviously, when Clark Harris went down. We've talked about the field goals for the past 5 minutes. So I get that. But, and here's the but, why not just take a delay of game? Why not say, yeah, we're on the 50 anyways. Kevin Huber this might be a touchback anyways. Let's just run all 13 seconds off and take the delay of game. Maybe the Steelers accept it. Maybe they decline it and then snap it. It moves you 5 yards back, but if you had a bad snap, you had a bad snap regardless, and it's going to really hurt you in that situation. Why not do that? That way, Mitch Wilcox isn't under the gun. You don't have to time it out exactly. You're not worried about it, and you give Kevin Huber 5 more yards to work with. Now, there was some chaos with Samaje Perine taking that fumble recovery and advancing it, and he wasn't allowed to advance it. And Joe Burrow was on the field, and Evan McPherson was on the field at one point. There was a lot of chaos there. That is Zac Taylor's job. Close game, overtime, chaos. Cut through it, figure it out. What is it? Hey, if everyone's confused, just take the delay of game anyways. Just take it anyways. And instead they rushed it. They gave the Steelers 13 extra seconds to work with. That's not good. That would have completely changed the way your defense played on that final possession. Maybe that catch to Freiermuth ends the game, or that pass and catch to Freiermuth ends the game that Mitch Trubisky made. I went back and rewatched this morning. I'm like, man, that was a huge play. Instead of extending the game and giving the Steelers a chance to win. Because as weird as a tie would have felt, it would have been much better in the standings than a loss. And instead, the Bengals are 0-1 right now. The situational stuff for Zac Taylor, really concerning. It is, because it's a pattern now. And he's coached a good team now. It's not like we're talking about 6-25-1 and he's got to get his guys in there and the culture. All of that is set up now. And so if there's an area that I want to see improvement, it's right there. Because this team was good enough to overcome Joe Burrow throwing 4 picks and fumbling. This team was good enough to overcome T. Higgins getting injured. This team was good enough to overcome the long snapper issues. You know what it wasn't good enough to overcome? All of that, plus the coach and situational awareness and leaving points out on the field and giving the Steelers opportunities that they didn't have to give them. The most egregious, not challenging the Jamar Chase touchdown where he was just absolutely dominant. So we'll see. We're going to have a ton for you this week, but had to get those thoughts off my chest. Make sure you be on the lookout. We'll be back with plenty all throughout the week. We're going to Dallas, but Joe Goodberry, Bengals on the Brain, Tuesday night, 8 Eastern. Elise Jesse, the OT, Thursday night, 8 Eastern. It's an exciting, exciting time. The Bengals, will they be able to right the ship without Dak Prescott in Dallas? They got to go to Dallas. They're not going to face Dak Prescott. We'll see this week. We'll have you covered all week long. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. And for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien signing off for now on CBT, Cincinnati Bengals Talk.